Hey everyone, and thanks a lot for tuning in to today's general community call. Today we're going to be covering a really interesting topic. If you don't know, a couple of weeks ago was ETH Denver, and without a doubt, the highlight of ETH Denver was HederaCon. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. We've got some really amazing guests. We're going to be chatting with, the masterminds behind the event, Lena and Alison. These are two members of the Hashgraph marketing team, and they did an absolutely amazing job in orchestrating everything. I'm probably embarrassing them now. They're going to be coming on to talk about a bit of a high-level overview as to the event, what happened behind the scenes, some of the numbers, and some of the the benefits that came from it. Then we've got our friends over at the HBAR Foundation. So Greg from the HBAR Foundation, soon to be called the Hedera Foundation. He's going to be giving us the institutional perspective, what were the enterprise doing, his insights from the site over there, followed by Brandon, HBAR Bull, community legend. He is going to be talking to us about the retail side of things and some of the community people who are representing there. We had an amazing panel of guests of all sorts of members of the community. And then finally, we head over with Richard, the Vice President of Engineering at Hashgraph. He's going to talk about the technical side. So it was a real diverse event with all sorts of different streams and threads hanging on. This session is going to be jam-packed. After we have those sort of private sessions, then we're going to be going into just a group panel, talking to everyone, asking some questions, and then also over to you guys and girls in the audience for a Q&A to ask all of the mighty guests that we have in today's episode. So I'm really looking forward to this. And yeah, I guess I'll hand it over to Luis and Fermin, who are going to help out. Cool. There we go. So here are the guests. We'll be double clicking into everyone's, but Brandon's going to be joining later on, and I guess let's do introductions when we sort of get to our turn. How about we start off now just with that high level overview as to the whole event with Lena and Alison. So Lena, Alison, really keen to hear, I guess, what happened behind the scenes, what were your favorite parts of it, and anything else which you want to share in terms of the key numbers and the turnout and other important details.
I guess I will go first. So hey everybody, I'm Lena. I've been with Hashgraph, Hedera, the whole ecosystem, going on almost 7 years now this summer. The really exciting thing about HederaCon 25 was I joined 3 months before Hedera 18, so our first user conference. So it was really cool to see the growth of Hedera, of our network and our community over the span of almost 7 years, and seeing the difference between the two events. And so HederaCon, we pulled it together in less than 3 months, 4 months maybe. And it was really great. We had over 1,900 people sign up. We had over 600 people on site throughout the day. The really exciting thing that we didn't expect, when we go to events like ETHDenver and host site events, a lot of times people event hop, they go in and out through events. We didn't expect that many people to stay on site for the full day. Our community came out and they showed up and they were there. They were super engaged and really excited to be there. And it was really cool to be at the event, seeing the energy of everybody excited to meet each other in real life for the first time, and having other net new people from the ETH Denver community who would have never been to an Hedera event be there and see all the amazing things that our community is building, the things that are happening on Hedera, that if we didn't have the event there, they may not have ever learned about it or may not have engaged in that way. So it was really exciting.
Yeah, and it's I think it's so great how exactly you mentioned 5 or so years ago. When did you say the first HederaCon was? In 2018, did you say?
2018, so almost 7 years, yeah.
Wow, so 7 years, that difference. And then what are the sort of key changes that you found from this event versus 7 years ago, the inception of Hedera, when we sort of literally just went mainnet?
Yeah, I mean, that was before we went mainnet, right? I think mainnet was 2019. The day of Hedera 18, the conference, we also did our first hackathon globally. We did it in a couple cities around the world. And I believe that was the same day that a lot of our SDKs launched. So, we were SDKs just launched. We had people who were interested in using Hedera, right? But there was no mainnet, so there was no use cases on mainnet. So the vast difference is in the amount of applications we have and the amount of builders we had in the network, right? We had a strong community of people excited to use Hedera and excited to participate in the ecosystem in some way, but there was nothing for them to do yet. And so it's cool to see now going from there. And a lot of the talks during Hedera team was our internal team speaking, right? You'll have Lehman on stage, you'll have Mans and a lot of our executives and our engineering leaders at the time. But this year, the really cool thing was on stage, outside of just Hedera and Hashgraph folks or THF folks, we had a lot of community builders on stage, right? Sure. You had people talking about the things they're building for other people to use, whether it's infrastructure, wallets for the general, the general community use. So it was really cool to see the growth we've had in the past few years and all of the amazing applications we were able to showcase on stage. And it wasn't just, we made it a point to make sure that when we're thinking about the stages, right? All the talks, it was not just our internal teams or our execs or whoever, right? We made sure that we tried to include as much of the community on these panels and in these sessions as possible, even on the tech stage, right? Having folks like IO builders, Michael Cantor, and all of those folks on stage too, sharing the really cool things that they've built that developers can take advantage of was really great. And also making sure that we were integrating some of the broader thought leaders in the Web3 space so that they can invite their communities to be a part of HederaCon and to see some of the cool things and maybe explore other synergies that our communities could have together.
Yeah, totally. And I think you're obviously referring to the talk with Charles Hoskinson and Lehman in particular. I mean, that was an absolute spectacle. Hearing these guys, like, obviously they're the experts in the tech, but also when it comes just to the political global landscape of Web3 and where the direction's heading, where the industry's heading, which direction it's heading in. I thought it was so insightful just to hear that really big picture vision, and amazing stuff for getting that organized. And I think we can just go into a bit more of a deep dive into that later on. But also, one of my favorite parts of it was just the fact it was that balance of, we had the builders there, we had Hashpack, we had Kabila, we had people like Brandon Davenport, who's obviously over at HGraph. He was helping out a lot on stage. We had Genfinity, who were giving it was just a perfect balance of the retail giving back to the retail community, and then the experts from both retail and also the enterprise side, which, Greg, I think when we come over to you, you'll have a lot more to say. So I'm really excited for that. Alison, what were your sort of thoughts on the event? What were your key takeaways and favorite parts? What was your highlight of the event and something that you'd like to share with us?
I think my highlight of the event was, my job at HederaCon was staffing the registration. And it was just really cool to kind of be the person at the front and sort of be that first line to greet people. It was super cool to see people from not only the Hashgraph team, but also the HGraph Foundation and Hedera, and also different projects built on Hedera, and then also just like people that heard of HederaCon at ETH Denver, didn't know HederaCon was happening, but because we had awesome people at the hackathon that was kind of talking to them about Hedera and how cool we are, and that brought them over from ETH Denver to HederaCon. So that was really interesting to see a couple of them kind of setting up on the spot. That was definitely, like, I love doing bouncer duty. I think it's great for me to kind of interact with people and kind of chat with them before they go in and enjoy the conference.
Yeah, and there was no gate crashes as well, because Alison was there protecting the front line.
Definitely.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Alison and Lena, for that highlight. And obviously, we'll bring you back on bring you back over some questions in the group panel and the Q&A. Greg, if you don't mind, I'll head over to you for some of your insights on the enterprise institutional adoption side. I mean, we definitely saw we had some amazing speakers. Do you want to maybe share some of the key speakers from the enterprise side? And some of the highlights that you found from them?
Yeah, I mean, there were what I really loved seeing was this message of collaboration is greater than competition, right? We're not a siloed ecosystem. We are embedded within the entire industry, and beyond that, whether, you know, it's in these various verticals from AI to financial markets, to retail applications. I love seeing the retail applications and the engagement of DeFi that was present. And ultimately, it's this message that we're stronger together, which is so exciting when you bring everybody together and there's cross collaboration, the ability to leverage the tools and the infrastructure that's being built by others to really accelerate what is being built in our economy and our ecosystem. And so that to me is just incredibly exciting when you see the acceleration of the ability to build, the ability to execute a vision. And yes, there were representations from Fortune 500 companies, and I loved hearing from the team at Swift. I loved hearing from some of the equity labs and Prove AI narratives. Seeing some of the team from Karate Combat was incredible. The fighters there, and then you have the team at Zonix who's doing some tokenization of securities. The payment side for Drop and the integrations that they have within the core banking system of the United States and globally. And then personally being on stage with Stephen from Canary Capital, who is bringing the first of now 2 HBAR ETFs that have been filed, is very excited, both from Canary Capital and then Grayscale as well. So there's so much positive momentum. And when you have this network that has proven scalability, right? A network that can accommodate the aspirations and desires of a Fortune 500 company, as well as an individual, and really grow, that's a really exciting and intoxicating mix. And so the energy at HederaCon was something to just, you could feel it when you walked in the room. And that I really loved. And it's this technology, it's tech adoption, right? New tools are coming every day to our ecosystem. And that's exciting from a builder side. And you see it with some of the AI SDKs that are coming. Like when we talk about transactions and bringing on the next billion people, well, guess what? The trillions of devices, agents. I mean, I know, Jake, that's something that's close to your heart, but it is a really exciting frontier that we're at, and it's expanding on these tools, right? Making them available to the ecosystem, the open source ethos, and it's not just Hedera. It's beyond Hedera. It's the crypto ecosystem as a whole, and the interoperability plays that and bridges that are here. And so I love seeing Charles and others from beyond what those that are just focusing on Hedera, because the reality is so many of us have exposure across the ecosystem, and so it's great to see that play coming. And then the fact that we all play a role, right? This is a community participation. Communities have strength, and the roles that we play. One of the components that I love to chat, and what I wanted to highlight on a personal basis in the chat with Stephen at Canary Capital about, how do I help make an ETF success? If that's one thing that is going to catalyze and open up the doors for so many institutions, because they don't need to deal with the constraints around onboarding to a new exchange or custody providers. And of course, holding your own HBAR is something that is fantastic in its own right, but it may not be the right thing for everyone. So calling up a broker, calling up your Fidelity or Schwab or whoever you might use for securities, and saying, well, now that there is a security wrapper in terms of an ETF for the HBAR as an asset, it can be so accessible. And so that's the role that we all play in empowering. It's we can all of course build on Hedera, can build new applications, but we can also continue to grow the commerce. Use DeFi, use Bonzo. I love chatting with the Bonzo team, right? Contribute some USDC that's now easily available from Binance and crypto.com, and bring it over and start to earn yield. Like that's fascinating. It's not, I don't have to hold my HBAR, on in Hashback or other wallets, but I can also start to generate some yield on it. So the engagement of DeFi, the engagement of TradFi, and just the commerce that's coming, it's incredible when the energy when everything comes together.
Yeah. No, it's really amazing, and I think all of us can sense the enthusiasm. I know the ecosystem, especially after coming together at HederaCon, the positivity around it and the sort of air of wow, 2025, this year is going to be good. And you mentioned quite a lot. I mean, obviously, Greg, I know your main sort of role at THF is working for it is bringing in these big institutions, building those partnerships with like Binance, with Crypto.com, who, if you don't know, as we just mentioned, they've just enabled USDC, Hedera native USDC, to be sent from and withdrawn their platform, which is a really big step change for the Hedera ecosystem. That's some really positive news. But Greg, I've just got one really quick question before we head over to Brandon and to talk about the retail, and it ties in really nicely with Brandon's segment. And my question is, how important is that retail community when it comes for someone like yourself going to big institutions and building those partnerships? I mean, you've mentioned that we can be using things like Bonzo and using SourceSwap and using other decentralized exchanges, reaching out with our brokers. But why is that retail layer so important when it comes to that enterprise adoption?
Oh, it's the most important part of, it's combining the people with the technology that empowers us, right? Why are we all in this industry? Why do we love cryptocurrency? It's because it's empowering. And so it should be felt on the personal basis, and that attracts institutions, right? I think some of the announcements that we've seen over the last several months, Fidelity International having a tokenized yield-bearing money market fund, Aberdeen's funds that have existed. There's products from through Archax from State Street and others that have the ability to provide services to institutions, and there will be more that provide the intersection between TradFi and a retail audience as well. And so there's we're only just scratching the surface, which is the really exciting part. But ultimately, it is a tool that should be empowering to the retail side, and that's where the strength of our ecosystem and the focus on on individuals is vital to the growth of Hedera.
Totally agree, man. Well, look, I'm gonna hand it over to Brandon so we can talk more about that community aspect. But Greg, thank you so much for your insights there. And obviously, again, we've got this group discussion coming up in about 20 minutes or so, as well as a Q&A. Guys in the comments, guys and girls, definitely ask your questions for Greg. He's got a lot of wisdom behind those eyes. So right then, Brandon, over to you. And how did you find the HederaCon event? You played a really key part. I know you're doing lots of interviews, so really excited to hear your insights.
Absolutely amazing event. In the past, it was, all meeting up at consensus, but to actually have something that was purely focused on Hedera was invaluable. Excellent marketing spend. Great shout out to Sarah and Lena and Allison and everybody that organized this. This is exactly what we want to see. And the reason for that is we talk about the Hedera community, and it is a community. And regardless if it's the governing council member representatives, an NFT creator, an HBAR holder, an HTS token holder, builders, entrepreneurs building in the space, and so on, they become this community of people that interact on a regular basis, become really close friends over the internet. But to do that face-to-face is so much better, and you get so much more done when you're doing that. One of the things that I was really impressed by is the difference between people that are building in this space, interacting, over Telegram or wherever it may be, and actually interacting face to face. When you're doing platform, because you've actually had to go out and use that, whether that's so forth. But when you're actually talking to them face to face, you get to hear about their vision. And that's one of the things that I saw a lot of here is sitting down with Manu from Kabila and him pretty much laying out his entire vision of how a tokenized community could potentially work. And it's a lot different than just launching an NFT collection on their platform, which is really easy to do and fun. But once you understand what his entire vision is, you have a more of an appreciation of where an entity like Kabila might go. Huge shout out to that team. I had conversations with Karate Combat while I was there. I was kind of representing them at the booth, but having conversations with them there that now have turned into a completely new thing. We're talking about sponsoring one of their up-only gaming events. For anybody that's not familiar with Karate Combat, one of the coolest things that you can possibly do in crypto. But now they're talking about sponsoring, having sponsors come in to supply the karate token for those up-only gaming events, where you pick the different fighters you think are going to win. If you pick them right, you get more tokens. If you don't pick them right, you don't lose anything. But where are those tokens coming from? Well, it was initially just built into the tokenomics. Now it's going to be done through sponsors going forward. So it's going to be great for all of our builders out there. And right now, these are seeds that were laid at HederaCon. Now we're having conversations about, what builders want to participate in this and sponsor something like that. So it's these kind of conversations that might not take place when you're just having conversations on X or Telegram. But when you get to have those conversations face to face, you really start to get to move things forward.
Yeah, it's just a totally different. I guess you can draw a lesser analogy to this classic the discourse between going into the office versus working at home. You have the ability to see each other face to face, have these chats around the amazing Hashpack coffee stand, which I think we all got a lot of coffees from. I know I definitely did. And but yeah, it's that sort of face to face dynamic which enables these relationships to be formed that you can get to you can become really good mates over X, over Discord, over Telegram. But it's when you see each other face to face, you give each other that handshake, that hug, that really takes it to the next level. So I mean, for you then, Brandon, what were some of we obviously had some of the established builders there. You mentioned Kabila. I also took one of the NFT selfies and got my collection printed. That was a really great feature. And we had Hashpack, we had Hyro representing. Did you manage to speak to any new builders there? Anyone sort of who are coming up the ranks? What are your perspective on that side of stuff?
I did have some good conversations around stuff like that. There were, specifically at HederaCon, there were some people that were talking about using drones and things they want to do and being able to highlight the things that are already taking place in that space, like Neuron and some of the things that we already had Greg talking about, the things that CLSQ are doing with the Internet of Things. I also had a great conversation with the worldwide calisthenics. So there's going to be a layer 2 that's built on top of Hedera that's going to allow anybody to pretty much do up-only gaming, which I was just talking about with Karate Combat, letting pretty much any sports league do something like that. And there's all of these sports leagues that have, niche followings that need to figure out a way to create those super fans. And that's what Karate Combat has done. I know it works because it worked on me. And now we need to bridge that into other spaces. Worldwide Calisthenics, I think that was the name, was the team that was actually doing that. And to watch them, they're excited about what they're doing with that, but then engaging with Kabila. And I know the founder of that team bought one of the NFTs that we did a live sale there. So it's all of these things coming together. This would have been tough to do a few years ago before the HBAR Foundation, the Hashgraph Association had the opportunity to really build out this ecosystem, whether it's our DeFi space or all these things that support our NFT creators, or then once you've tokenized your community, like I was talking about with Manu, then how do you organize that community? Well, now we have Galaxy Worlds, which allows you to do that. And I've done that around my community. So now that we have all of these teams that can leverage off of each other and all of the tools that we have in the space, this is when an ecosystem like Hedera starts to go through that hockey stick moment and things completely take off. We have some great builders putting out some really good products.
And I guess if we sort of loop it back to what Lena was saying at the beginning, that the first HederaCon in 2018, we had none of this. I mean, look at us now. And so Greg earlier was talking about all of the DeFi and the DeFi protocols which we have, which is so important when it comes to them pitching to enterprise institutions that like the SEC. I mean, would the SEC do an ETF for a token that has no liquidity? Obviously not. So all of these things contribute to come to a big picture. And what you're talking about, Brandon, over here is we've got these community layers. We've got the Kabila plazas. We've got the Galaxy worlds, which allow tokenizable communities. And I think, yeah, it's just really, really exciting to see the foundation that we've been building. We're now coming to a time where there's a bit more positive regulation. So it's pretty good. And I guess that foundation can only be built upon the technology. I think you know where I'm heading with this now. So Richard, I think I'll hand it over to you. Please tell us what were your main insights, takeaways from the HederaCon, specifically, obviously, the technical stage which we had, which was running for the whole day as well.
Yeah, I think, just to echo a lot of what everybody else said, the event was just incredible, put together very well. I've been to very, very many technology conferences over the last 20 years, and the production quality and everything was top notch, as good as anything I've ever attended. It was really, really well done, and I trust that it won't be another 7 years before we have the next one. I'm hoping it's going to be quite a bit sooner. Also, with what Brandon was saying, I totally agree. My whole goal in going to HederaCon, to be honest, was just to meet people. That was all I was really hoping to accomplish. Because I've been here now for 4 years and have never met anybody in real life outside of my own team. So that was that was a really big deal for me to be able to get to meet some of the different builders who are actually building on top of the stuff that my team has been building. So that was really awesome.
I guess, Richard, it's not just building though, is it? It's also contributing, right?
Well, so this is, I think, one of the things that we had a booth there for Hyro, and we're really starting to get those contributions. Brandon Davenport has been participating in every single one of our technical steering committee meetings since we started having them. And I would encourage everybody else to join too. These are public meetings anybody can come to. Every HIP that we discuss, every HIP that's approved is done through the technical steering committee. Open meeting, anybody can attend. If you have your own HIPs that you're interested in, if you are interested in ones that we are working on, or just want to be a fly on the wall, we hold them every week on Tuesday mornings. On the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, LFDT, they have a calendar. You can subscribe to the calendar to get all the meetings. There was a SDK community call this past Monday. They're doing them, I think, every other week. And we're going to start running some Blocknode community calls on a regular basis as well. So we're talking about getting those going today too. So we're really bootstrapping that Hyro community, trying to take what was previously a bunch of Slack discussions internally and turn them into open community calls that anybody can come join, participating, and contribute to. Prior to HederaCon, all of the core software, except for the relay node, which was an oversight. I didn't realize it until we got to HederaCon, and I was looking down the list, and I said, we didn't move relays over yet to Hyro. But if that's not done yet, it's going to be done in the next week or so. So the consensus node, block node, mirror node, all the SDKs, those things have already been moved over to Hyro. And on a practical level, what does this mean? It means that we are actively trying to engage the community, and we want that engagement. We want to make it very open. We have, for example, the Python SDK is currently being developed all by people who are not on the payroll of Hashgraph at all, except Nadine, who's the DA who started that, and then we've got people from the community who are stepping up and contributing to that. And it's beautiful. It's like exactly what we're trying to see, and so we're trying to build that out, make sure that this is not just a public network in terms of what's executed, the hosting of it, if you will, but that it's a public network through and through. It's developed by the public, it's hosted, it's used, it's public all the way through. That was really good.
I guess also just to echo this whole sort of thing that we've been, this common recurring theme of that foundation being built. We have that foundation with the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, which Hedera was a founding member of. This is the exact governance structure that we need in order for these open source contributions to truly be open source. Because anyone can create an open source repo, but that doesn't mean it's like an open source software.
Exactly.
So I think
there's a big difference there.
Sure.
If you have it, you can have an open source repo that you control, and then you can take private whenever you want.
Yeah,
or change the license whenever you want, or do whatever you want with it. Having open governance is an entirely different game, and being with the Linux Foundation, that's the A tier in open source. So
that's the best.
It's a great place for us to be.
Yeah.
The fact that we had the engineering presence was really something that I love to see. It's been years for me personally since I was, coding and on the engineering side. And so talking with developers directly was really energizing. And similarly, you look at, there's a Dell commercial. Of course, Dell's on our governing council from years ago, is the Intel Inside, right? And for so long, you didn't necessarily know the Intel chips under what was underneath the hood, right? And so there was a lot of discussions of what's underneath the hood at Hedera. And you see some of these big brands like Intel and NVIDIA that are working with some of the partners within the ecosystem that are powering Hedera. And so with over 70 billion transactions, there's so much that's under the hood there, and more transaction by count than the next 5 or more protocols combined. People go, wow, that's incredible, because it very much was sort of the Intel Inside. Everybody didn't necessarily know what was under the hood, and now it's starting to come out. And when you look and that becomes more aware and publicly known, it's mind blowing, the strength of the foundation, and that's a credit to every single person in the ecosystem that has built this.
It's one of the things, Greg, that really impressed me is, we had your conversation around ETFs. A lot of people were talking about that. We had the conversations with Swift and Rob Allen, and that got a lot of attention. And then, of course, we have the conversation around AI, and we have Equity Lab, and the discussions around that. We have the Intel chips, like you mentioned, and NVIDIA chips that are going to have Hedera technology embedded in it. And it was barely, picked up by a lot of the people that were covering the space at HederaCon. So the fact that we have all of these things, they are so exciting to everybody. And, some of the things are even getting pushed off to the side is just really impressive. And I have to give another shout out to Richard for hopping up there. We did a live Shark Bites with Rob Allen. We had some really good questions from the community. It was fun to do some of those side events. And Richard came up there and asked his own question. So I appreciated you coming up there and participating, Richard.
I was just so excited to be on Shark Bites. I was like, yeah, this is so fun. Yeah, I think it's also really incredible when you think that you guys were talking about, tokenization, all these. In fact, I think, Jake, you kept saying token a bunch of times. And it brought to mind that, 4 years ago, around this time, we were just barely launching the token service. We say that, our open access was in 2019. But it was only 4 years ago that we actually even got a token service. And the smart contract service was only a year after that. It's only been 3 years since we've had, the modern smart contracts 2.0, right? It's all really relatively recent.
Richard, I don't want to hijack this, but I do have a question for you. We were talking about both, crypto.com and Binance are going to be supporting USDC. So, of course, that's huge for all the businesses that want to leverage our USDC and all the great things. Once you've built a token like that on top of Hedera, it inherits all that goodness from the Hedera network, like micropayments right out of the box. But this also allows all the other HTS tokens to be supported by those platforms as well, right? So that's huge. So now we're going to start to see, hopefully, some of our really great HTS tokens be listed on those exchanges as well.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, I saw Greg. He was like, "Yes, that's exactly sort of on the surface you see USDC, which is amazing on its own right, but the fact that you have an HTS token that's being listed, that's a big deal.
More liquidity, and it gets to your point, Richard. Like, yes, the speed. When you think about it in time, it's not that long ago when some of these things first came to market, but it shows you what you can do when the foundation that you're building on is scalable.
Yeah. And it's just proven as well. Anyone can go onto HashScan and they can see when 1 year ago we were running 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 TPS. They can see the entire transaction count. It's definitely a flex, which to be honest, I don't think. And Greg, we had a really quite a detailed discussion about this back in Denver, and it is, to be honest, it's a flex that we don't flex enough, because it really separates us. And it is that for every single use case that we've described. I mean, Brandon, you were describing earlier use cases about communities, and even finding these niche sport communities, building on the L2, building on the up L2, which is obviously a layer 2 on top of Hedera. These communities, they add up. If we have 100 sports communities with 10,000 users, I mean, my maths might be a bit dodgy, but that's like over a million users or something like that. Whatever it is, it's a lot. And those transactions, that you need to have a high transaction capability. We've already proven that. We've already demonstrated to the audience that we can actually accomplish this. And I think it's only going to become more and more prevalent as we mature.
Yeah, it's just a small flex to throw on top of that is that because we don't talk about these things publicly very often, but when we do our performance testing for every release, we run a gauntlet of tests for days at a time at full throttle, right? And we also do that at full scale, and this means over 1 billion entities in our database. We're talking about hundreds of millions of accounts and tokens and associations and smart contract data that we put into the system, and then we run it at full speed for days before every release. Like, just a small flex. We're not just talking about high TPS, we're also talking about massive scale in terms of the state that we can support on the network.
Yeah, that is a pretty.
It's cool.
There is a whole component here that we haven't even scratched the surface of, relating to the environmental sustainability of the network, right? The carbon footprint, the energy consumption of Hedera, which is best in class. And that best in class carbon footprint or energy consumption has resulted in just a tremendous amount of innovation within this ecosystem for sustainability. So you have large global international corporations, consortiums, and beyond that are really interested in how they can do something within the sustainability area. So it's great to chat with people that were doing some incredible things and building low-income housing, utilizing Hedera for a variety of different components around the manufacturing supply chain. Things that are providing really tangible political benefit to people, right? Housing, water, the air that we breathe, and finding ways to make it more data heavy and transparent with monitoring. And so there's a whole nother section there that I think a lot of people maybe don't see on a regular basis, but the conversations that are being driven through the sustainability are at the highest national and international level. And that's a position that Hedera holds that really it has a dominant market share, and it's a really powerful component of our ecosystem.
And Jake, bringing this back to HederaCon, what we're doing right here is on a very small scale is what we saw at HederaCon, geeking out about real world assets or AI or transactional Internet of Things, regenerative finance, and all that kind of stuff. There were 1,600 people instead of half a dozen having these conversations and getting excited about what the potential of Hedera is. This is a microcosm of what we saw there. And again, just the number of people that we got there. I mean, we had, I think, 16 or 1,800 respondents, and Lena, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and 1,600 of them actually showed up. That's really impressive for a first event of this kind.
I'm correcting you because you're wrong. About over 600 showed up on site, but we had 1,900 people sign up and express interest. Again, for those who have never been to an ETH Denver or sort of a crypto native conference like ETH Denver, there's like 20 to 30 events happening at the same time on any given day. So people have a lot of options and choices. And so we wholeheartedly expected maybe a few hundred people at each time going in and out. And I was by sort of the exit door a lot of the event, and there was barely people leaving, which was really crazy to see and really awesome to see, right? The people who showed up, even those not in our community, wanted to stay. We provided a lot of value for them that they chose to not go to any of the 20 plus side events. They probably signed up for that exact same day, you know, and I looked at the events, there was a lot happening around the ETH ecosystem around that same time. And so I think it was really great.
Yeah. For sure. Well, look, everyone, we're heading into our final 20 minutes. So what I want to do is I want to open it up to the audience. They've already started asking some questions. To those watching, this is a call to action for you. Keep coming with the questions. This is going to be the opportunity to get it answered. So we'll do about 15 minutes or so of questions, and then we'll hand it back over to Lena and Alison to wrap it up with an ETH Denver summary and anything else which they want to mention. I'm going to ask the first question here, and it's by Stan. Stan, shout out to you. You've got some really good questions up here. So Hedera's got amazing tech. Is there any reason why we've not had more active integrations with Bitcoin? What are people's thoughts on him? And I've got something to say on this. And I know, Brandon, are you up to date on the Hashgraph Online stuff by any chance?
Well, and what is being done by Michael Cantor and the Hashnals and all that kind of stuff. So there are some really good touch points there, but you would probably be able to speak to it better, Jay.
You put me on the spot then. Well, so to give my sort of 2 cents on that, there is some foundational work working with Bitcoin Ordinals community. We've got two really key developers in the ecosystem. Cantor Codes, that's his Twitter account, and also Patches. He's one of our guys at Hashgraph. They know the Bitcoin community very well, and they've actually built using the consensus service, which is this high throughput service that we've sort of been alluding to earlier. Using the consensus service, they've created a decentralized internet, which I'm not sure exactly how, but is coupled with Bitcoin. So that there is some stuff which is going on there, and I guess I'll open it up to everyone else actually to see if anyone else has any other views on integrations with Bitcoin and sort of that cross-chain interoperability side of things.
Yeah, I imagine that there are a lot of people that first got into the cryptocurrency space through Bitcoin, right? And so that's where these ecosystems and communities are overlapped in many ways. But Bitcoin is an incredible form of collateral, right? It's an incredible store of value. It's amazing in a variety of different economic and technical levels. And so, yeah, I think that as the infrastructure is developed with projects like the Borrow Lend and like Bonzo and Saucer and Dexus and whatnot, the ability to have other assets, be those crypto native like Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, or TradFi assets that are wrapped and now able to operate more efficiently on Hedera's rails. You're going to see a lot more of that coming, because that's what companies and Bitcoin and individuals do. They tap into the value of these assets through utilizing as collateral for loan products or other financial transactions. So I would expect that to grow.
I think this is something that I have definitely seen in the time that where we were 4 years ago from now is just night and day. And the big reason is, we made changes on the technical side that I'm proud of, but really it's the ecosystem parts. It's the fact that there's an ecosystem that's building up. And I think, Greg, what you're getting to is really important. Not every initiative is going to be something that it's like, oh, Hedera is doing it, or Hashgraph is doing it, or an HBAR Foundation is doing it, or whatever. The real magic here is when people outside of that set step up and start doing things. And we are seeing these sorts of things happen in very, all kinds of different areas, from ETFs to anything else. people are recognizing the value that is in Hedera and then plugging it into the value that's in other ecosystems. And the more that happens, the more powerful everything becomes.
Jay, I'm a big believer in sound money, and Bitcoin is a great form of sound money. It's the digital gold out there. But I would look at, what runs our economy? Well, it's energy. Oil is a part of that, and all the other energy sources. That's what I would think, Hedera and HBAR. And that's what a big part of this Web3 revolution is going to be. Now we have to figure out who are going to be the winners in that space, that, digital energy, digital oil, as I know Ethereum often claims to be. We have to figure out who the winners are going to be, but I think Hedera is certainly going to be one of those.
Yeah. Well, they're more like digital coal. We're the digital oil. But that's obviously the scalability side is of the utmost importance. Well, that's great. So let's head over to one of these other questions that we've got, and I think Richard, this is perfect for you. Another one from Stan: are community nodes a continued goal on the Hedera roadmap? We spoke a lot about some of the other stuff, but how about community nodes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, they are. And there's a whole bunch of work that we're doing every release that's advancing that goal. One of the ones, there's several right now. One of them is known as Dynamic Address Book. It basically allows people to be able to add and remove membership to the network dynamically. Whereas today, it's like anyway, it's a more manual process. It's not very dynamic. It's very static.
Yeah.
So being able to make that dynamic is important. Those nodes are now all listed as first level entities that are in state and on the mirror nodes and everything else. So when we added staking, which again, it seems like just yesterday, but in some ways it feels like we've had it forever, but actually it really wasn't forever. It's only been like a year or so. So all these things are steps along that path. We're definitely doing it. We need to have community nodes for scalability when we get to multiple shards. That's going to be an essential part of that process. And we're absolutely still working on that. But it's not a simple thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's the moral of the story. If I could wave a wand and have it today, I would. But we're doing the best we can and working hard on that.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, there's also a whole variety of different things that come up too that also need to be done. Features that the community needs now for the features that they're developing and delivering, and we always prioritize those things as well. So there's a lot happening.
And so Richard, if community members on this call, I think we had the answer earlier, but maybe just worth repeating it here. If community members in this call want to get involved with the steer of the Hedera network and understanding what's immediate on the roadmap, where these things line up, how can they do that?
I think Hyro, participating in Hyro is really the place to be. Like I said, every improvement proposal that we work with goes through the TSC. Those meetings are all public. They're open to the public. Anybody can join and participate. It's really a participation is the best way to get involved in order to help move that forward. All of our issues are in the issue tracking system. And there's a good group of people who are working various different time zones. We've got people in Europe, people in the US. So wherever you happen to be, there's an opportunity to find somebody who's actively working, contributing. SDKs, consensus nodes, all these things are open source that can be contributed to.
Yeah, totally. Right, let's head over to the next question. There's still some really good ones coming through, so we're going to try to be as quick as possible and make them quite targeted. This one here, Greg, this is for you. How's it going about the ETF? And thanks for the fantastic project. But yeah, Greg, ETF, what's the latest on that? Or ETFs?
Yeah, now it is ETFs, right? And I remember, looking at Bitcoin as the first asset that came and was wrapped in an ETF, and the success of the Bitcoin products. And now you have these basket products that are Bitcoin and Ethereum and others. And so, I think on a personal basis, yes, we have now 2 applications for single asset HBAR focused ETFs. But there may very well be, basket products down the road, because certainly I think that would make a lot of sense for me as a personal, investor in some of these retirement funds. And, there's a whole bunch of, there's this infrastructure that we're tapping into, which is just very exciting.
Yeah. And then, so Greg, again, we did briefly touch on this earlier, but I want to make this call as actionable for the community, because we've been repeating the theme that the community is the backbone of it. And what particular steps can someone like myself, a retail user, what can we do to help accelerate the adoption of ETFs, or the integration of ETFs if and when they come about into the financial services that I use?
Well, this is just broadly what you can do. Whether you're jumping in an Uber for the first time and chatting with your Uber driver, or you're calling up your service provider, but it's ask them about crypto. Ask them if they accept HBAR, if they know what HBAR is, share some knowledge. If you're interested in reading documents, you can go on the public filings for various financial products and comment on those. If you're like me and have an interest in putting an ETF in your retirement fund, call up the providers of your retirement funds or your broker dealers and saying, hey, if and when these products come, I'd love to have it, because it's showing, that's how they look for client demand. So that's where the power of sharing knowledge, sharing customer desire is that's in all of our hands. Yeah,
amazing. Cool. Let's we'll just quickly, for those of you who are interested in Hyro, I've shared the link. You can see it on the screen now. This is the GitHub. So from here, you can find all of the other relevant websites and calendars. But this is the Hyro repository over here. So that's definitely, this is the TSC Technical Steering Committee. If you're interested in taking part in the Hedera ecosystem and development, this is the place where you want to go. All right, a few more minutes. I do know that we've got to loop it back around with Alison and Lena. I'm going to ask one more question though. Brandon, this one's for you. Did Brandon tell us when he's competing in a karate combat influencer fight?
I'm going to save my brain cells for now, but I was out there with one of the people that does compete. I was wrestling around with Postmaster, who has competed a couple times, or once so far in the pit in the Influencer Fight Club. Now, he is a professional fighter. So the last guy he went up against was a professional fighter. You'll see when they have those Influencer Fight Club stuff, the real amateurs, they wear the white belts, and then the pros wear the black belts or the gold belts if they're champions. And you'll see Postmaster was wearing a black belt. But I don't want to put any spoilers out there, but he has a really big fight that's going to be coming up again. That's going to be in karate combat. We're going to be able to put our tokens on him, so it's going to be exciting. And I can't wait until we can see May in there again, who did a really good job at the last consensus, competing and won for, actually both of them won. Postmaster won and May won her fight. So far the competitors for Up Only Gaming coming from the Hedera ecosystem are doing pretty darn good. But I don't think I'm going to be out there getting hit in the head anytime soon.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. We need you to cover all of the latest news in the Hedera ecosystem. So that's it. Keep those brain cells. I know I did say this would be the last question. I lied. There's one more question which I think is really relevant. Richard, when can I start running a block node?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd ask that when I saw that one come through. That was a great question. So we actually just had a big project review meeting this morning to go through block nodes and see where we're at. So first thing is, little Tarzan, I would say, we are scheduling open block node community calls for development, and we are looking for people to come help develop. There are a lot of great features that need to be developed. The speed at which you will have access to it is directly proportional to the amount of contributions and people that we have helping move this thing along. Jasper, who was introduced to many people for the first time because he hasn't had a public persona at HederaCon, incredible developer, worked with him for many, many years. He's working on it full time. Nana, who many of you guys know, he was at HederaCon, he's working on it full time. We've got other great developers who are working on it full time. We're pushing really hard to try to get this thing done. There's an alpha version of it available today. but there's nowhere for it to really plug into. You can sort of run it standalone, but it's not plugged into a bunch of things. The block streams themselves are in public buckets, so you could run a block node and start consuming from there, but you have to pay for those public buckets. So it's a little bit difficult to get started in. But as far as development goes, and I know Little Tarzan, you are an excellent developer. Great opportunity for you to come and participate and really get your hands dirty and help move that project along and get us to the finish line.
Please do. Please do. Yeah. All right, then. Thank you, everyone, for all of the questions. Let's head it back over to, again, the masterminds behind this whole event, the people who, without them, we wouldn't have been able to have this amazing conversation. Lena and Alison, if you could just give a final wrap-up as to ETH Denver and anything else which you want to mention now.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. Yeah, I just wanted to take a few minutes to quickly kind of recap what we did at ETH Denver. I mean, we had HederaCon during that week, and we decided to host it alongside ETH Denver, which is a conference that happened around that time. So we did participate in the hackathon, and we gave out a total of $50,000 worth of prizes, and we had 3 bounties. There were Hedera Explorer, EVM, and also AI agents. And I do believe we posted the results in a Twitter thread, so you can find more info on that. And also for the hackathon, for the conference portion that is happening at the same time, we had a really beautiful custom-made booth with a developer station, a build on Hedera demo station, and we also really gave out really cool stickers, tote bags, and some socks as well. And so for the developer station, we demoed our developer playground and Hyro, our open source project. And for the Build on Hedera station, we had about 12 to 13 projects that rotated throughout the days to demonstrate their project to attendees. And we thought this was a really good way for attendees to not just hear from our own staff, but also people who are building real projects on the network. And that just made it much more interesting and relatable. And just quickly on other engagements, we hosted a networking brunch with our governing council member, BitGo. We participated in a One Piece Labs summit where Jake spoke on an AI panel. Jake also spoke at a workshop on AI agents during the hackathon, and Nana, our director of software engineering, as Richard mentioned, also gave a keynote on EVM equivalents on stage during the ETH Denver conference. And so overall, a lot happened that week. But like we mentioned, even during this call, lots of really good excitement around Hedera. And also just a quick call out, if you are in New York, next week we will be attending the Digital Asset Summit. We also have a networking event with BitGo on March 19th. And hope to see you all there.
Amazing. Anything that you want to add, Lena?
No, not really. Allison summed up ETH Denver really great. You know, it was really cool for us, Hedera, the community, to all come out to an event focused on Ethereum, right? And show up the way that we did and show everybody what Hedera is all about. And it was cool to, have HederaCon in the beginning of the week and then bookended with our booth at ETH Denver. The other really cool thing, Allison talked a lot about the hackathon, right? The really cool thing for us is, with Richard and his team's job and helping us with our EVM equivalents and getting our smart contracts up to par is, the fact that year after year, we've seen just a growth in our submissions of hackathon projects at ETH conferences, right? Yeah. So like last year at ETH Denver, I think we got a little under 20 projects. The year before that, like 2 years ago, I don't think we got any qualified projects who used Hedera's EVM and smart contracts at ETH Denver. And this year, I think, Jake, we got over 30 to 40 projects, right? Yeah. Who were qualified that you and the team had to go through, and I think it's so great to see. And that's a testament to how far our tech has come as well, just in the past few years, right? Seeing the amount of projects at an Ethereum conference that we get submitted, who are interested in using our tech, doing cross-chain work, or even doing things natively on Hedera, which is really cool. And it's really cool to see our exposure grow in that way.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I guess I was sort of boots on ground for a lot of the hackathon portion, and so many people were talking about Hedera. It was really like we've established ourselves over here in the EVM world. And I even heard things like, oh, wow, yeah, Hedera have been here a few times before. So I think even just the fact, yes, 2 years ago, we didn't maybe get so many hackathon submissions, but we had the presence there. We've been embedded into people's head. People really take us seriously. And I think that's an amazing takeaway, and something which HederaCon has only further solidified. I know we're at time. I just want to say big thanks to everyone who's been watching. This has been an amazing discussion to host. Thanks again to all of the guests. We've got some of the best, not just at Hedera, but in the whole ecosystem. And I want to finish off just by really quickly wrapping up with some of the key highlights that we came up, stuff that we as the community can do. And I say we because I'm part of it, and everyone else is part of it too. If you're a builder, check out Hyro. Start contributing. Maybe even it's not just contributing code, have a look at some of the requests. Say, I heard of this new feature that these community members have been talking about. Bring it into the discussions. Everyone's opinion is so important. And if also you're an investor, if you're looking at something like, okay, how can I help with the ETFs? Give up Fidelity a call, give up your financial institution, say, I'm interested. And these sorts of conversations definitely will help push us over the line and increase that adoption to a wider scale. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that I've missed, but again, thanks a lot to everyone, and appreciate everyone who's been tuning in for this whole hour to hear all of us talk.
It started with a vision for how the internet should work, how it could work. It started with a vision for how the internet should work, how it could work.
It really should be possible for anyone to just kind of wave their hand and carve out a piece of cyberspace and create a world of their own.
But the technology to achieve such a vision simply did not exist.
There's no way that you can have really high throughput and also have all these security and fairness properties. I was able to convince myself it's not possible. And I set it aside, and it would come back and haunt me, and it would keep nagging at me. And so I would pick it up again and set it aside again. And this kept going for years.
3 years later, Lehman had a breakthrough, the hashgraph consensus algorithm. In 2015, Mance and Lehman founded Swirlds to battle test the algorithm in private permissioned environments. And the following year, Lehman published a technical paper. But in order to realize the vision of a fairer, more secure digital future for all, the world needed a trust layer, a public ledger built on Hashgraph.
Okay, it looks like we are down to the final seconds here.
3, 2, 1. Open access.
The network is open. As of this moment, we have council member nodes online, ready to take transactions from anyone, anywhere in the world.
Since open access, Hedera has witnessed exponential growth on the network, with billions of real-world transactions, hundreds of applications, and tens of thousands of ecosystem developers. The Hedera Council has gone from strength to strength, growing to 29 members on 6 continents, stewarding the network responsibly and ensuring its longevity for generations to come. Hello, future.
Yeah.